All right, ladies and gents, welcome. This is a game from the Gold League of T90 Titans League, and I know nothing except the fact that this is apparently a really good game. And there was an update recently, so we had to deal with massive trees because I didn't feel like restarting my game and adding the mods because the mods disappear every time there's an update. So for those of you that like the big trees, here you go. There's your big wood. For people who don't like it, I apologize. But the map here is Serengeti. Also, everyone sending stars in right now. That's pretty awesome. Thank you, guys. We've got Stark, who is in the red in the north. And then we have freaking Andy, who is in the south. So Stark is a Brazilian player. Actually has a pretty crazy Age of Empires 2 career if you look at results. I would say that he is definitely past his best. I'm sure that he's busy with life and whatnot, and that probably plays its role. But I think the meta changes over the last year or two has kind of hurt his style because he's known for loving walling. I'm not saying he has to do that, but just something to keep in mind. Again, this is Gold League and T90 Titans League, so the top 8 in that would be able to jump right up to Platinum for next season. It's also $20 per win for these players, too, so good opportunities for up-and-comers. These guys are in the top 50 of the world. And you might remember Freaking Andy because Freaking Andy was a player who converted my Wonder in that ranked game. Or my Fatoria, excuse me, not my Wonder. Yeah, Andy's a good guy. Okay, so we have Andy playing as the Mongols, and the map here is Serengeti. Super open, all right? Super open. It's more open than Arabia. Harder to wall. Expect messier games. Mongols, I think, are top tier on this map because of all the hunt. And Mongols hunt faster. So I would say that Mongols is by far the best civilization here. And I'm not too sure about the Sicilians. The other thing about Serengeti you should know is there's little spots of gold everywhere. So you look around, stone and gold, stone and gold, stone and gold. So it's definitely a map that you can expand on a lot. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what the players will do. If I had to predict, I would say early aggression from Andy. Stark will probably try and defend it. And then we'll see what happens after that. Yo, Keith, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm excited to also cast this individual Gold League game. That's what we're going to try and do. There might be some group stage sets that I will cast from Gold League. But I won't be able to commit to casting every single thing in this event. As much as I... Oh, God, this Phil could... as much as I do things for content, right? And, you know, that's a big reason as a tournament organizer and streamer, I host things is for content. Honestly, this is 50-50 content and for the community, right? Like, this is not to imply that I ever do anything that's not for the community for content, like make large compromises there. But even if I were to get sick for the next month, okay, that would suck. But even if I were to get sick for the next month and not be able to cover any of this, I'm just happy to get it started because it's a good long-term thing. And I think it really benefits the players. So, yeah, I don't know what happened in the series between Andy and Stark because I don't see Stark picking this as a home map. So I'm just going to assume that maybe Andy had lost a game and fell back to this being the home map. Or this was maybe the first game, which is the map that's left over after all the picks and bans. Yeah, maybe that's my guess. One or the other. In my prediction video, which right now, as I'm doing this live, later on YouTube, it'll already be out on the third channel in the T90 Titans playlist. I did predict Stark might be relegated, and I said Andy would probably be mid-table in this group. But Stark has a habit of proving people wrong. If you guys watched that breakdown where he played in that tournament that used the Hidden Cup maps, Visible Cup, actually. That amazing game against Capwatch. I mean, he's a really strategic guy and can do some pretty crazy things. But speaking of crazy things, Andy, man. This is the power of the Mongols. This guy's going to go man-at-arms. And he doesn't even have Loom yet. So he's saving Loom till after Feudal because he figures he's going to be rushing Feudal so fast. He's not going to be attacked. This is one of the fastest man-at-arm timings you'll see. We're not even at 8 minutes yet. He's got his second militia on the way. And he has wasted no time pushing in the zebras here. And he will even be able to follow it up with an archer range. That's the crazy thing. This is a crazy build order. Because it's not like Stark's build order is bad, by the way. Both players had pushed in a lot of their food. Stark, to me, looks like he's going to go scouts. Let's see if Andy can find Stark. It looks like what he did was he went forward, he saw the berries, and then he immediately looped back and pushed in more food. So he did prioritize the scouting. So 8 minutes, 30 seconds. We have 3 men-at-arms on the way. Games are lost in situations like this. Like, this is a situation where Stark could die so horribly. And he goes for walls. He goes for walls. And he goes for walls. Wow. Dang, man. Not bad. Okay, so the man-at-arms are here. So let's... I would not suggest playing this map, by the way, with big trees, like I'm casting with big trees, because there can be holes. We would have never seen that hole. But we're rolling with the big trees for now because of the patch. So far, I guess so good for both players. I mean, Stark hasn't taken losses. Stark, though, doesn't have... Oh, this is far from good. Stark doesn't even have a barracks yet. And Andy's going to come over with archers and a spearman. Oh, wait. The barracks is right there on your screen. Sorry, I'm stupid. I'm stupid and blind. I didn't see it. So now he's going to go into an archery range. I was going to say, holy, like, where did his wood go? Look at Stark, though. Stark realizes that an archer might be coming forward, and he gets some hits in there. And now he's going to play into skirmishers. So far, he hasn't lost any villagers. He didn't take any unnecessary hits on his scout. And he has to be careful. And Stark, what? Oh, man, that's unfortunate for him, actually. Maybe a little greedy as well. But what that does mean is the skirmisher can boink that. Stark now goes for the blacksmith. Good news for him is he still has lots of jobs for his villagers underneath his TC. And weakening that archer paid off because now he doesn't have to worry as much. The whole idea of this strategy, though, is to force the opponent into ranged units. You want to force the opponent into archers. And then if they're on to archers, you have an archer skirm follow-up. So you just have more military hits at a really fast time. I would say the man-at-arm archer timing is very similar to what crossbowman timing can do in Castle Age. But I'll tell you what, I mean, Stark survived. And Mongols don't get a lot stronger after this because they don't have any more hunt to take advantage of. So for Andy, this guy hasn't gone for any farms. And meanwhile, Stark, he's actually gone for horse collar. And look at this. He's finishing all of his farms after horse collar. He actually stopped finishing the farms so he could get the timing down. And Sicilians, they have more food on their farms after farm upgrades. So there's 320 plus food on these farms. And then meanwhile, Andy is getting horse collar, and he's not going to have way less than that. So I've been impressed with how Stark's defended. I know that he's known for his big walls, but he's defended this nicely and shown that he doesn't have to rely on the big walls. And the fundamentals have been really good here as well. Similar amounts of TC idle time. You know what would be interesting, guys? If we could maybe get stats after Gold League and Platinum League conclude on things like TC idle time before Castle Age. I feel like, I mean, it's not like 40 seconds is something that you don't see with Platinum players. We saw Viper have 2 minutes of TC idle time before 15 minutes the other day and still end up getting the win. But, like, you know, I look at this now and I'm like, okay, that's a little high. And I just wonder if we were to average it out and look at Platinum, if the top 24 would do a better job at that. Like, I would assume they would. Okay. Stark on skirmishers. The other thing that's complicated here is Sicilians resist bonus damage. So if you try and make anything against Sicilians to counter them, it gets complicated in the long term. But look at this play. We have the spearman from Stark because he knows maybe scouts could come out. He sees the scouts. He's microing down the man-at-arms, and the spearman's still there. Stark is honestly doing insanely well. Yet both players are clearly microing their armies and forgetting to queue up villagers at times, but still very impressive. That happens. That's normal. You know, no player is going to have 0 in this type of a game. And Stark has to be careful because if he moves out without the spearman, his skirmishers just can't really accomplish much. And what I'd like to see from Andy maybe is to actually just get behind the wood line with the ranged units here. Able to snipe another spearman, so clearly Stark a little distracted. Yeah, I mean, good opportunity for Andy to start to try and pick off these villagers and make Stark have to move away. Still, spearmen continue to go down. I mean, this is where you see how strong the ranged and scout move, or like compare it to skirmisher knight or something. See how strong that can be. And Stark says, you know what, I'm kind of done with this. My opponent doesn't have that many archers. I'm going to go for scouts. And this is hidden. This is behind all of this. So I don't think Andy is necessarily disappointed with how this game has gone. I think even though Andy hasn't killed Vils, Andy's happy to have control. Control is a good thing to have. But we're going to have scout production. And he doesn't know about it yet. So I think the key here for Stark would be to snipe as many archers as possible. Stark's just waiting and waiting and waiting and being patient. Now running into the wood line. And yeah, look at Andy. So Andy's thinking, I'm going to rush to Castle Age and I'm going to kill fast. He even uses the market here. Yeah, again, if you didn't have small trees, you'd be screwed here. Look, there was a hole. I'm sure Stark could see it. And he takes advantage of it too. Look, and he says, bye, archers. See ya. Now, let's see if Andy sees this. Now it's awkward, right? Because it's kind of like, well, did you really even need the scouts? Because you already cleared this. In the end, he's going to push it back, and it gives Stark a rare opportunity to maybe move forward, though. And I'm not sure what Andy's choice is going to be in the next stage. It won't be archers, so I'm assuming it's going to be stable units. So maybe, like, Steppe Lancers, camels, knights, anything out of the stable. This archer's dying to a lion right now. And yeah, Stark a little paranoid, to be honest, guys. I feel like this is a time for him to run forward and get some damage in. And he came home first, but he says, okay, I sense what's going on here. And he says the same thing. I'm going to use the market, and I'm going to up to the next stage. So Sicilians start with 300 stone. And so you can sell more stone and thus get more gold and then buy more food and catch up. Also, the thing that I think Stark is going to love is all of his farms were horse collar farms. And it's Sicilian horse collar farms. So we've got like 2,000 food worth of farms here. And for Andy, let me just show you. Whoops, excuse me, sorry. Actually, I think all of his farms were also horse collar farms, now that I think about it. But it's just not as much food as Sicilian, so I think you're going to see the wood count probably dip down at times. And there's no other gold for Andy to take right now, so faster Castle Age into no control. Not so good for him. And from what he can see, there is a gold over here. But Stark is now kind of broken through just to find more house walls. And we are going to see Steppe Lancers. Okay, this is what I want to see. And I know Andy's going to do it because Andy is a fan. He literally said, I played him in a 1v1 the other day. He's like, hey, I'm a fanboy. Are you going to cast some of my games? I was like, yeah. When I find the time, if there's good games. So apparently this is good. He's going to raid with Steppe Lancers, guys. This is the play, right? Your opponent's bracing themselves, but their economy is probably better to come out with knights and whatnot. So you can't really trade against their armies, in theory. But he's going to get his gold by placing a TC here. And that helps with golden wood. That helps his economy. And I think he's going to go out for the raid. Bad song. Anyways, the Steppe Lancers are on the way. And look at the scouting from Andy. I'm just so excited because we might see Steppe Lancers. But he's looking for the army. He's looking for openings. Ultimately, I think you should want to focus on the wood lines on this map because they're almost always going to be exposed. And here comes the steps. I like the split group too. If you just attack something over here, Stark might react. But I also like how Stark noticed this. And Stark had his own scout in action there. And the thing about Steppe Lancers, guys, is they don't cost as much gold when compared to a knight. They do less damage, and they also have less pierce armor and less HP. So they're just kind of weaker and cheaper, basically. But they're a bit more niche because they're able to attack from range. They have one range. And if I'm not wrong, they might even be a little faster than a knight. These things seem to be moving pretty fast without husbandry. Feels like something I should know by now. But yeah, it does feel like they've got a speed difference. And now for Stark, I'm sure he wanted to open up offensively. But now he's on the defensive. So he says, well, I'll buy that stone back. And he drops a TC here. Meanwhile, Andy's shoring up the walls on the side. Andy has gained a pretty significant Vil lead. But the long-term army comp is going to be an interesting conversation for Andy. Andy realizes the need for siege and is adding the siege now. So, I mean, I think Andy is kind of expecting that at some point Stark is going to end up getting enough army to run over here. And so he's just added the siege at home. Because if he thought he actually could control the game, he would probably go for a forward siege workshop. Yeah, Stark has ballistics now, so his ranged army should be pretty strong, and he continues to make more crossbows. So I think for now, Stark is going to hope to get good trades and just not take losses. And then eventually hope to make it out across the map. So on the topic of Steppe Lancers, by the way, I think there's a kind of a balance issue with them right now. So I think the issue with Steppe Lancers is that the only Steppe Lancers which I feel are worth it are the Mongol Steppe Lancers because they get more HP. I don't think the other Steppe Lancers are worth it. 98 HP being great is not great, if you get what I'm saying, and that's what Mongols have. So, I mean, I'm happy we're seeing more Steppe Lancers, don't get me wrong, but it is a little disappointing that for Tatars and Cumans, it's not really a conversation, at least competitively right now. The only Steppe Lancers we see are Mongol Steppe Lancers. But I am happy to see it. It's just like, you know, only so many civilizations get the Steppe Lancers. You kind of want them to be useful for all the civs. And Andy controlling the game nicely right now. But Stark loves his economy. And Stark has his next town center up. And so it's full defense for the Brazilian. Full offense for the Austrian. I would say, though, that the disappointing thing here has been you've gone for siege and it just now arrives forward. Look at these Steppe Lancers go. I think it could be pretty easy for Stark to add a knight and pick that off. So that knight's going to run out now, and the Steppe Lancer's still trying to find damage, and Stark just continues to run around. But I'm sure some of you guys are getting secondhand annoyance. Is that a thing? Because Andy's just running around and around and around, and he's still making Steppe Lancers. Now, I think with this economy, I would actually prefer to see him mix in some knights now, too, because that means your whole force is going to be a bit tankier against range. But, you know, I say that because he's floating gold. He might use gold for other things, and he says, screw that. I want Steppe Lancers. But, again, they just die to range units a whole lot faster. Still 2 TCs for Andy. And now Stark's Vil count is looking better, and Andy's got to roll the siege all the way forward. And he's going to go for another siege workshop. Now, this is for the kill. Stark is actually dropping a donjon here, so you can see he's concerned. That's to protect his stone. But he has gold, and he has stone, and he's now down a villager. A great game here. Another villager goes down. I think something that Andy could be doing here is, instead of having the main group swinging around, have like 3 Steppe Lancers in one group, and then your main group in another. Use the main group to distract the ranged army, and then wherever that ranged army is not, use the other Steppe Lancers. That's probably why Stark did this, by the way, because he knows he's vulnerable, but there's also the thing of sometimes you just want all your focus to be in the same spot, because if you try and do too many things, you can have problems. Look at these Steppe Lancers go. Ting, 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 ting. They only have 9 attack. It's just how easy it is to group up everything onto the range. And I guess Andy's approach is, well, if I take out his archer ranges, he's not going to have army. And then the only army he does have is countered by siege in the first place. So, I mean, Stark is really in trouble right now. And it doesn't look like there's really any way back. What will be exciting, though, is he can actually drop a castle with Sicilians, and Sicilians build that faster. But he's going to go for his own siege right now. But, I mean, this is rough, man. I think we're going to see some market usage here for Stark. And, oh! Okay, the skirmishers go down. Losing the skirmishers is not actually the worst thing here. Andy looks really close to taking the fight. The forward siege workshop was a great idea. Another stable now. Again, I don't know which game this was in their play all 3 in their league. But certainly setting the pace if it's game number 1 for the rest of the games, right? Showing Stark what he's made of. 1,000 score lead for Andy. More villagers, more army. So many Steppe Lancers. Oh my god. I don't think Stark can deal with this. Also, I want to see the Steppe Lancers get on top of the crossbows and chew them up. That would be so satisfying. He's being really patient. He's such a tease. But the idea of having a Steppe Lancer is, since you have that one range, it's very easy to surround a ranged army and engage. We are going to see a castle here for Stark, and I think Andy is actually going to take the engagement. Start getting kills. TC Garrison, crossbows. Steppe Lancers will die. Now he's splitting groups. Stark needs a castle. He's going to drop a castle here, which should go up because the TC's shooting Steppe Lancers. Meanwhile, Stark has killed a lot of the Steppe Lancers. Stark's Ville count is still okay. He might lose this town center, though. The Donjon actually kills Steppe Lancers. Here's Steppe Lancers run. The castle's up. And suddenly, I mean, sure that the lead for Andy is still pretty obvious, but Stark isn't going to full-on die to Steppe Lancers. He's just going to full-on die to Siege at this point. The Siege is the main thing he needs to have an answer to. Like, if that was Knights, the game would be over. So, I don't know. We've seen the pros and cons. I've loved this game, though. This has been really good stuff. And Stark is still in this because he could maybe get to the Imperial Age. Freaking Andy's Steppe Lancers cost a lot of food. And he's going now for TC number 3. He's also going to get relic number 5. Wow, so he's been getting the relics. And he just wants to eat all the TCs he can find. Over here, he can't really push anymore, but he took out the town center. Stark needs some big mangonel shots here. And he needs his crossbows to protect his siege. Huh, big moment. Good work there from Andy. That's definitely a numbers situation. Stark doesn't have the numbers. Stark doesn't really have easy gold access. He needs to build a mining camp over here. Yeah, Andy's very happy with the situation, I'm sure. But Stark is imping now. What in the world? Another town center here for Andy to secure more gold. Again, that's why I like this map, is it's super open, very aggressive. But then you have to expand all the time. It's also very hard to rely on walls in ways you normally would. So when compared to Arabia and some other maps, you're just not going to see that work out. I mean, this is wild. That is Stark's Imp TC. He might not actually make it to Imp. But there are a lot of weak Steppe Lancers. And now Stark's TC can do it, actually. Okay, so TC takes 1. This means he survives a bit longer. I mean, Andy's like, get out of my game right now, basically. He's like, get out of my game. I've got you where I want you. This is game over. Yeah, Stark still doesn't have gold income. He still doesn't have a lot of crossbows. I hear a lot of people talk about their favorite strategy being imp into GG. I think that might be what we have here. Mongol Steppe Lancers, new meta. Stark also doesn't resign early. Stark is a fighter, so this game might continue to go on for a while. I think Andy could kind of do anything at this point with this type of lead. But I don't know. I mean, Stark's going to have wood. He's going to have gold, and he will have imp. I'd like to see him maybe try Arbalest. Can someone remind me what the amount of HP is on a regular Steppe Lancer, a non-Mongol Steppe Lancer? Isn't it 60? Or is it 70? Whatever it is, it's super low compared to 98. Like, I mean, 98 is already a pretty low stat one compared to a knight, right? Wow. Yeah, I'm surprised that more high-level players haven't been going for Steppe Lancers over the last couple months with Mongols. It's not a bad play, particularly in early castle where Mongols could be seen as having a weakness. Some people say, you know, Mongols, they're not good until post-imp, but maybe not anymore. 60 before Bloodlines? Okay, so it's 80 after Bloodlines. Got it. I guess it's not that big of a difference. Stark is still going to try here. Andy on the way to the Imperial Age, though. And he might make a switch into Mangudai now. He can kind of do anything because of this economy. Robo, can you tell me which game this was in the series? I'm now curious because they do a play all 3. Boink, boink, boink. Steppe Lancers on the town center. You see how quickly you run out of gold, though? He placed a TC on this gold. Oh, okay. I guess he was building stuff, but since it's a lot of 2 tiles and 3 tile golds, it gets really awkward for gold in this map, which is maybe another argument for Steppe Lancers. I think the openness gives you a good argument for Steppe Lancers. I think the mobility, and then also the lack of gold. And yeah, Stark realizes he needs to try and hold on here, so he was heading over place a TC on this gold, but Andy already well aware of all this stuff. And Andy's going to deny that. And yeah, I mean, he was dropping a castle there already. I was game 2. Gotcha. So this would have been a home map for Stark then, I guess. Which is kind of fascinating. I wouldn't have expected Stark to pick this as a home map. We do have a Treb right now for Stark, but I'm excited to see Elite Steppe Lancer. Don't you... Listen. You need to commit for our audience here, freaking Andy, okay? If you get any upgrade that's not relevant to Steppe Lancers here, you're dead to us. Okay, he's getting Iron Casting. Oh, okay, GG. Stark taps out. Stark knows he's dead. Dang, that was an interesting game. I mean, overall, freaking Andy was able to just keep the pressure going. But I think, even though he didn't do damage, opening Steppe Lancer and going for the Rage just put Stark in such a defensive position. Because if he would have tried to go for Knights, it wouldn't have worked out. He didn't have the gold, so I don't know if that played into his thinking. But he said, all right, well, I know he needs to wait for Castle Age. Let me just run around him with Steppe Lancers. And then it turned in to having full control. And, you know, some of the things that I maybe didn't even factor into my conversations earlier where I was talking about the Steppe Lancers are dying to the crossbows is also the cost, right? So, you know, I had a lot of back and forth here on Steppe Lancer Knight, Steppe Lancer Knight. Mongols in particular with 100 HP, I think, can and should be going Steppe Lancer sometimes. And it gives the Mongols a much stronger Castle Age. You know, a lot of other players out there just played them like any generic civilization in Castle Age and hope for Mangudai later. But that was really strong from Andy, and I like the control. I also just like the fact that we're seeing Lancers, like just a different unit, you know? But again, I mean, I've been meaning to bring some games to people where Steppe Lancers have been utilized in ranked games, so I'm happy to see it used in a tournament here. And Andy did an amazing job behind this. You know, the issue, I think, for Stark as a player these days, especially on the more open maps, is like he does struggle with the overall APM. You know, he is known as a slower player, more of a boomer player. So I hope people enjoyed this one. I won't be casting the full play all 3 from this particular series. I will eventually be casting Gold League, but happy to get some T90 Titans League from Gold League casted. This will be on the main YouTube channel as well, so I hope people keep an eye on that T90 Titans League playlist. But let me actually see, what was the result when these two players played? The result was, okay, 3-0. So freaking Andy actually won 3 games in his play all 3 up against Stark there and had a really good start to the series. But Steppe Lancers, man, let's go.